Let's face it, nothing can truly prepare you for being a parent. When children become teenagers, a parent's life can become enormously challenging. Today on Family Matters, how to successfully parent a teenager. Teenagers, we've all been there. But when you become a parent, it's easy to forget what we put our own parents through. How should parents strike a healthy balance between setting reasonable boundaries and enabling them to develop the skills they need to become independent, responsible, and productive adults? I've invited some experts to give us some tips. Our first guest is high school principal Jean Bigelow. Thanks for being with us, Jean.
My pleasure.
I want to ask you about peer pressure. Parents tell me constantly that they seem to have lost control over their teenagers because of all the peer pressure out there.
Well, and I think there's something to that. Unfortunately, the parents themselves are the only ones that have the power to impact that. I think parents of adolescents need to be possibly more involved rather than less. And I think as parents have their children grow up, they feel like they need to step back a little bit. And I think that's the exact wrong thing to do. Parents need to know what their children are doing, who their friends are, and what's going on. Because if the parents are not highly involved with an adolescent and a teenager, then the peers are going to be the ones that are raising the child rather than the parents.
What I find interesting about the discussion is that some kids seem to be more vulnerable to the pressure and the influence of peers than others. And I never quite figure out what it is about someone who can have the kind of charisma that can lead a kid to a direction that's not really good for them.
I'm not sure it's somebody having the charisma as much as that child missing a strong relationship elsewhere, and usually with an adult in their lives. If they've got a strong relationship with an adult, a significant adult in their life, and will take their cues from them, they won't be swayed by another person who has a peer influence and is supposedly leading them away.
Well, it seems to me that parents say that their kids are more interested in being with their friends than being with their parents.
And parents allow that to happen. And
well, what choice do they have? I mean, kids are beginning, once you've passed adolescence, you're kind of feeling your own way, you're trying to invent yourself, and your friends do matter more than your parents do. Isn't that normal?
No. Well, it's normal, but it's not necessarily the way it has to be. What I think we should do as parents is make sure that our relationship with our child is at least as strong as the peer relationships. Who said that every teenager needs to go out every night of the weekend? Where is the strong family time and family ties that keep a family bonded and growing? I hear stories all the time where parents go on holiday and take a child for their friend to be with. Well, you know, when you're sitting on a beach somewhere, the child and his peer are bonding and you're chopped liver. And it's that kind of thing that we really need to take back as parents and make that relationship really strong. I often advise parents to take their adolescents one-on-one on a holiday somewhere where there's no screens and there's no phones and there's nothing else other than the parent and the child, so that they can really connect. And then by the time you get back from a week or 2 weeks away, you've got that connection, and your peers matter, but not as much.
Sounds to me like these are the kinds of connections that have to have been established quite a bit before a child reaches adolescence.
Absolutely. And
you can't just start this when they're 13.
No, you start when they're young, and parents of young children are really, really good at that. They just have to remember not to let up when the children start turning to be adolescents and looking around. It's crucially important that parents stay a pivotal point in their child's life until they're grown and away.
what do you think the role of schools is in this whole raising of teenagers issue?
Well, I think
parents expect schools to do a lot.
I think they do, and I think schools do a lot, but they can't be the parents to the children. The parents really need to take that role and be foremost in the child's life. There's great mentor teachers and that sort out there, but they cannot replace the love of a parent for a child.
But I think that when it comes to peer pressure, don't schools have a role to play in balancing out the influence that some of the leaders have over the followers?
Possibly, and we can, you know, when we're doing class assignments and that sort of thing, we could break up unfortunate combinations of kids and that sort of thing. But really, the child who has inner strength to resist the peer demands is the one that's got a really strong relationship with a pivotal adult in their life.
Do you think the media plays any role in the difficulty that so many parents have with keeping their teenagers focused on what matters in life?
I think so, insofar as it draws the child away from the family. And everything in the media, the internet, screens, we've talked about that at other times, where it's a tug away from the family unit. And limiting that and not buying what the media sells, that we expect all teenagers to be off with their peers all the time, is a great way to start.
Well, you're hitting on a huge issue, this screen time issue. Can you tell us a little bit about what parents are supposed to do to take charge? Well,
I think limiting the access. Too many kids these days have computers and TVs and smartphones and video games all in their bedrooms. And that's allowing strangers into your child's bedroom day and night. Children don't have the innate ability to say, oh, I've been online for an hour, I think I've had enough. You know, it's just too attractive and too alluring, so they're on all day and all night. I know of kids that have their smartphones under their pillows and are texting at 2, 3, 4 in the morning because of this need to be connected.
Are they getting their homework done?
Yes, but it's taking them hours and hours and hours because they're doing it in a social situation with all their friends online rather than in the 20 minutes it would normally take them if they just got down and turned off the screens.
So the message is, you got to take charge if you're going to parent a teenager successfully. Thank you very much, Jean, for being on the show.
My pleasure.
Coming up after the break, journalist and author Hank Nuwer. Stay with us. Welcome back to our discussion of raising teenagers. Our next guest is author and journalist Hank Nuwer. Hank, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here.
In addition to raising 2 teenagers of your own, you are a world expert on hazing and bullying. Mm-hmm. And in terms of raising teenagers, I want to ask you about the importance of self-esteem, because it seems to me that parents have a huge role to play in building self-esteem to prepare their teenagers for adulthood, but also not going too far.
I believe that's true, because I believe that self-esteem is important, but I think that there has been too much of an emphasis on popularity these days. You want your student to be the student athlete that everybody looks up to, or perhaps if your teenager has some talent in tennis or ballet, you want to send them to the best schools, but that also puts them under certain stress.
Do you think parents overemphasize success in some cases?
I think they do a little bit too early. I mean, we see cases where parents want to hold a student back, for example, for a year so that that male might be able to play football a little bit later, and instead of just letting him go through and enjoying the sport.
What does that do to a teenager if you feel pressured by your parents to achieve huge success? Is that not necessarily a good thing?
I don't think it's a good thing. As a college teacher, I often see students who decide their junior and senior year what they want. What does a teenager think when a parent is setting his or her life course at age 13, 14, 15? I don't think it's a good thing.
Do you think that the emphasis on being popular, does that come from parents, or do you think schools have have overemphasized that, or is it just kids themselves that see a lot of other teenage role models in the media and want to be like them?
I think it's a combination of it. It certainly would be parents who are maybe a little overindulgent in terms of buying clothes, particularly T-shirts that have a message, or maybe revealing clothes, those kind of things, particularly with younger girls that kind of compete them against each other. I mean, we all know that our young people develop at different stages.
Right. And
instead, we've got 12-year-olds who look like 22-year-olds. I'm not sure that that's healthy.
I was doing some research on your career, and I was very interested to see that you have written a book about the use of steroids and performance-enhancing drugs by high school students. Is this a really big problem?
I think it's a big problem in Canada and the United States. The whole idea is body image, and the whole idea of either being big or well-defined at that particular age, and when steroids are particularly dangerous when the young person still has a lot of growth to do. And there are some parents who are turning a blind eye to it. There's a lot of pressure, for example, on males to achieve athletic success and get a scholarship, particularly at lower socioeconomic levels.
But where are they getting these steroids from?
Well, when I did this, the book, I had one of my students do it at the YMCA, where the drugs were quite available, and interview a seller of these who freely talked, as long as his name was withheld, about the people he was selling to. He was selling to high school students, to adult males, everyone.
Did you think that the schools know about this and that parents actually endorse this, or are kids doing this under the table on the sly without anyone knowing?
No, I think a lot of it in terms of schools would be the idea that this is happening away from campus. What can we do about it? But there are coaches who know what's going on. One of the places that I've taught at, the strength coach was arrested for involvement with steroids and with athletes. So in a few cases, coaches may be turning a blind eye or may know what's going on.
Now, you teach journalism at the college level.
Yes, I do.
Do you think that teenagers coming out of high school are prepared for college? And by that I mean academically and emotionally prepared.
No, I don't. Not in the least. Right now we have what we call helicopter parents. A lot of parents.
Helicopter parents.
They don't want to let go. Their students come and they email you, want to know week by week the progress, which makes it very difficult in the United States, which has freedom of information laws and FERPA laws that prohibit this. But yeah, they want to not let go.
Let go of what?
They don't want to let go of their students' academic progress. They want to make sure that week by week that the student is doing well.
Well, isn't that a good thing?
It's a good thing if they talk to their students about it. They talk to their own kids about it, but I don't think it's a good thing when they approach the college teachers, and I don't think it's a good thing when their son or daughter knows that the parents are contacting the college professor. They're not in kindergarten anymore. They're adults.
But are the kids themselves coming out of high school ready academically? Because it sounds to me like these parents are so worried that their kids might not be.
I started teaching college in 1982 at Clemson University, and what I have seen with all this emphasis on testing, or in the United States, No Child Left Behind, which I refer to as No Child Left Unhurt, we have kids that can do very well on tests, but they don't think analytically. They are good multiple choice test takers, but they don't write well anymore. They don't like to read, and they will tell you that. They'll scan, but not read the full book.
What about emotionally? We will be talking in another episode about bullying, but emotionally, do you think that teenagers, with all of the pressures they've been put under, with all of the striving they have to do to try to find some independence, with all of the screen time that they have now on the internet, do you think that they are ready emotionally for college life?
I don't think so. I think they get too early into social networking, for example, and that kind of group support, which can erode in a heartbeat if they suddenly get targeted. And that, to me, is worrisome.
Well, that is worrisome, and I hope that parents are listening so that they can set proper boundaries. Thank you so much for being here, Hank.
Thank you for your good questions.
When we come back after the break, we will hear from teacher and parent Pina Ferrero. Stay with us. Welcome back to Family Matters. We're now in chambers with a teacher, Pina Ferrero, who also happens to be the parent of 2 teenagers. Pina, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Do you think that raising teenagers nowadays is harder and more challenging for parents than, let's say, when you and I were kids?
I think so.
Why?
I think with the internet, with social media, you have to, it's like you're on the lookout at every corner to make sure not only who your children are hanging out with, where they're going, what they're doing, but then there are these hidden tools that they have that you are not always privy to. You'd like to think that, but you can't be there all the time. You're not on their phones all the time.
So how do you, as a parent, draw a balance between giving your child some independence and letting them kind of discover who they are and overseeing what they're doing?
That's the major issue. That's the balance as a parent that you need to find. You know, giving them that 5-step lead way and then pulling them back a little bit, giving them a little more, pulling them back a little bit. I think basically to always have an open communication with your with your children. Yeah. Open dialogue. I always say that you may think they're not listening, but they're listening.
And what about consequences? I mean, it seems to me, when I hear parents complaining that their kids are out of control, the sense I get is that there's really no direction. There's not much consequence for bad behavior.
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer in natural consequences.
What does that mean?
For behavior. What that means to me is that if my teenager refuses to get up on time for school, he or she will be late for school. He or she will have to deal with the school once.
Right. But isn't it your responsibility to get them up in time and get them to school?
It is to a certain degree, but if you have a teenager who is 250 pounds, you can rant, rave, jump up and down all you want. If he or she doesn't want to move, they're not moving.
So the natural consequence, just to play out your scenario, is that they're going to be late. And if they're late enough times, there's going to be trouble.
Oh, absolutely.
What do you do about that? Is your position, well, you know, that's a consequence, you have to live with it?
Well, a few things that you can do. You can reiterate, you can try to help coach that child and tell them, okay, you know what, you went to bed really late last night, you couldn't get up this morning. You're going to have to get to bed a little bit earlier. You're going to have to get all your things ready the night before. Help them with some strategies so that when they get up in the morning, they just have to get dressed, brush their teeth, and out the door they go. The other thing I would do is call the school and say, my teenager is having a really hard time getting to school on time. And then I think it would be the school's responsibility to say, oh, at least I know at my child's school, detentions will be served, 1 detention, a few detentions, even a Saturday detention if it's persistent. But
you know what I hear teachers tell me? They feel that parents are expecting teachers to do the parenting. They feel that this job has been downloaded on them, that their job is to educate, and they feel like they're the ones that are being left to do the discipline.
To a certain extent, but I don't think as a school or as a teacher, I'm trespassing that parental role when I don't get an assignment in on time and I deduct 10%. That's a natural consequence. Your assignment wasn't on time, therefore you are going to have a deduction in your marks. You don't come to school on time. If this persists, guess what? You're going to serve a series of detentions, or you won't be privileged to attend a club. Or in my son's case, if you don't keep up your marks, you're off the football team. These are natural and real.
So you believe that one of the keys to success in parenting a teenager is to make it very clear that there's going to be a consequence for conduct that's not acceptable.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you think that there is a problem with teenagers, a lot of teenagers, becoming overindulged, having this artificial sense of entitlement to whatever they want in life?
Absolutely, and I think it confuses children. I don't think parents realize that. Parents who try to give their kids everything, I think do a disservice to them. Children need the reality check that you need to earn a lot. You have the right as a child to protection, to clothing, to food. But anything really beyond that is a privilege that children, teenagers need to learn that they need to earn.
So if a parent who's watching this program today were looking for some advice from a parent who has successfully raised teenagers and who is a teacher at school, What do you think some of the keys to success are for raising a well-balanced teenager who makes good choices in their life? Because I think it's all about choice.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a matter of listening to your child. I think a lot of us think we listen as parents, but we only hear what we want to hear. I think parents really need to sit down and stop talking and really listen.
But parents tell me that their kids are constantly on the cell phone. They're text messaging constantly, and I've had expert evidence in my court from psychologists saying that there are children who have become addicted to cell phones. They just can't stop text messaging, and they get angry to the point of violent when they don't get an immediate response to that text.
Well, that's a huge issue. As a parent, I would ensure that there are boundaries put in place. You can have your cell phone from this time to this time, and that's it. And if there are issues beyond that, the child's going to have to deal with it. And as a parent, no one said it was going to be easy. It's a lot of hard work.
But the results are worth it.
Oh, 100%.
Thank you so much for being with us, Pina.
Thank you for having me.
I'm Lauren McLean. Today on Q&A, our question is, we're separating and we have children. Should I move out on my own? Never leave the matrimony home before getting legal advice. The family home is often the family's single biggest asset. Leaving it increases your cost and often delays settlement. When children are involved, there's even more reason to remain in that home. It's critical you continue to be involved with your children on a daily basis to decrease their stress and sense of abandonment. In disputed house possession cases, a court will look at whether it's impossible for the spouses to share that home, and if so, a judge will focus on who has custody of the children, often preferring to leave this unit in the home. It will also look at whether there's alternate accommodation available and how affordable it is to the family. It will look at whether there's been family violence that requires the spouse to be removed, and finally, it might even look at whether it's possible for the spouses to alternate the use of the home on a bird's nest arrangement whereby the children remain in the home at all times, but the parents alternate moving in and out of it.
Thanks for watching. For extended interviews and exclusive content, please visit our website at familymatterstv.com. If you'd like to submit your legal question to our Q&A, go to advicescene.com. I'm Justice Brownstone. See you next time.